Candid Conversations, know that talk for the nation. You gotta grind and be patient. Ain't no time to be complacent. Get the people ready to wait. Haters gon' keep on hating, but the show is going on. You know the war's yours to take.
What up, what up, what up?
I need stars every ceiling. I get high.
What's cracking, y'all? Happy Thursday. I hope everybody's Thursday was as beautiful as mine was. I want to thank everybody for joining in tonight. We are doing a special show tonight. It's special to me, all right? Because I have somebody on here tonight that really means a lot to me. He's really special, a really special friend to me, mentor, big brother, you name it. He is it for me, all right? Tonight I have on my show special guest, super producer, Laney Stewart. And we're going to tap in with Laney, and we're going to dig right in right now. I don't want to waste any more of his time. He's a busy man. So let me get Laney on here, and I hope you are ready to learn something tonight, all right? Because you're going to learn something. Here we go. Let's see. Let's get Laney on. Laney, what's up, man?
What's up, bro? How are you?
I'm chilling. How you doing? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How you holding up?
I'm chilling, man. Just trying to stay out the way. You know how it is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Keep that
A lot
mask
going on
on.
right now.
Keep that mask on. Absolutely.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well,
Where
welcome to
Kimmy
the
at?
show. Welcome to Kimmy. What did you say?
Where Kimmy at?
She around here somewhere. I think she might be laying down, taking a nap, doing something.
Oh, okay. Let's get to it. Let's get to it.
Hey, she don't like being on camera, Laney. I don't know when that happens.
Come on now. Right.
Somebody's trying to call me, and I'll rebuke that in Jesus' name.
It's the devil.
It's the devil. But yeah, man. I want to jump right into it before somebody tries to call me again. Listen, so
Okay.
you when I had your brother on, last week. I'm sorry, week before last. I'm sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
And let me just start by saying this. I always thought you guys were from Chicago, but he corrected me. What city you from in Illinois?
I mean, it's people. We grew up in Calumet City.
Okay.
But that's like nobody knows where Calumet City is. I mean, maybe a little bit now, but when we were growing up there, so we would always just, when you tell people Chicago, but I mean, our ties into Chicago are like from the suburbs up, living, whether it's my grandmother lived on 79th in Michigan, we are always in the city. Our church was in the city. So, we grew up in Calumet City, South Holland. And then then migrated to LA and then Atlanta and every place else. But we always just say Chicago.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. For sure. I just want to get that straight.
I didn't know he said that.
Chicago.
I didn't even know he
not quite.
Yeah, he rapping hardcore when he going into Calumet City. Yeah, I said.
That's what's up. Listen, I want to talk about your humble beginnings, man. Before everything that you're doing right now, before all the accolades and all the success. As a child growing up in your neighborhood, man, what were some of the things that you did to occupy your time as a child? I like to start every show off by asking this. What were some of the things you did?
For us, particularly when I say us, me, Mark, and Tricky, sports was a huge thing. I mean, we played everything. I ran track, played basketball, tried football for a day, got hit. I was like, I'm good.
You sound like me.
Yeah, I got that. I got somebody who it meant way more to them than it did to me, and I was good. Like, I was like, oh, I'm going to play this basketball thing. So baseball was huge with us. So sports was a really big thing. And then the flip side of that was music. I mean, it was equally like, as a child, we were doing stuff, at least particularly I was as a child, doing things that were music. Music was such a part of our house, part of everything that we were doing.
That's what's up. Okay. Yeah. And now growing up as a kid, I'm gonna get to the other part later. But hey, what's up, Mark? I see Mark sitting here.
What up, Mark? Yeah, I just saw him.
Growing up as a kid, who were some of your influences musically as a child?
Dude, everybody. I mean, I just remember living in Chicago, Calumet City, whatever you want to call it. The radio stations, we got a lot of different music. and they were very, very segregated. Like you had your pop station, we had our two black FM stations at that time, and then we had a lot of black AM radio stations. So when you were listening to black stuff, we knew we was listening to black stuff. But when you was listening to pop white music, we knew what we were listening to. So at that time, not only what we were getting on the radio, but as well as what we were getting in our house. You know, my mother was dropping off, like, strangely enough, you know, my mom introduced me to Kiss. Like, we listening to heavy metal, to Queen, to gospel. I mean, and then we're acting on it. We're bringing that around the piano and doing arrangements, and she's creating these arrangements for us to do. To like we did when we were like, I guess we had to be about 10 or 11, and she just one day decided to do this arrangement of Bohemian Rhapsody, and calls me, my brother, not Tricky, it was Mark, Cynthia, Kook, and myself to learn Bohemian Rhapsody. So we're singing the beginning of, you know, like some little kids. Like, so we had that sort of kind of, that was supposed to be fun. That was fun for us. And then you go outside and shoot some ball, you know, if you could get out, you know.
Absolutely. Sounds familiar. It sounds familiar.
Right.
Yeah. So now, as far as, because I know that, and just knowing you, I've been knowing you for what, 20 years now. So
absolutely.
Knowing my history on you, but let me ask you this, because I know some of these answers, but I just want the people to know. Where did producing start for you? Like, at what point did you say, you know what, this is what I want to do? Was it a process, or was it something that you kind of just fell into? How did that happen for you?
Well, it's interesting because, once again, kind of tying into the aspects of music being around us, with my mom and her sisters, and particularly her sister Kitty, her other sister Vivian, who's passed on, they were like the top background singers in Chicago in the studio. So they did commercials. They worked with all the hot producers there. If you needed your background vocals done, they were who you called. So at an early age, I was formulated to what a producer was, because the great Charles Stepney, who I don't know if you know of, or a lot of people don't know, who was the original producer of Earth, Wind, and Fire, they did a ton of work for. They used to work for him. So he was kind of like our Uncle Charles. So he'd be doing Earth, Wind, and Fire. I'd be, you know, and things like that. And then my mom and them would go down there and sing background vocals. Verdine would be on bass or something that Kitty's project or things. It was very incestuous. So my first thing was like, oh, that guy is a producer. I like that. And then we got dragged to the sessions with my mom and them. So my mom would do a Curtis Mayfield. They would do a session with Curtis Mayfield. You'd be sitting there watching Curtis work. And so I grew up watching these legendary producers, and because they were going from, you know, studio to studio to studio, we were getting, and particularly myself, this experience that was just like, yo, I'm seeing these session musicians, string arrangements, horns, background singers. It was like you're a kid, and it was formulating a mindset very early on, at least, that music was going to be in the future. I didn't know I was going to be a producer. I was just like, whatever he's doing, I'm trying to do that.
Right. So it's safe to say that your passion for music has been since day one. I mean, you know, because a lot of people, you know, you have a lot of people out here, a lot of producers and songwriters, and even artists, they tell different stories about how, you know, I could have been a basketball player, I could have been. So you're saying that the music has been your thing from day one.
Well, I thought I thought I might get, you know, might go to, you know, at least get a scholarship or something to maybe play basketball, but I would have had to, you know, finish. But, you know, when I got to be like 5'11", and I was like, you know, this is stretching. My dad and my mom's, you know, basketball thing went away real quick, and the music was the next thing. It was like, oh yeah, the ball, yeah. I mean, I could go, but not like that.
Right, I got you.
So music was a natural. You know, we were just like regular kids, but we were having this experience that, you know, other kids I know at the time weren't having. You know, I started doing commercials when I was 8, doing like voiceovers and singing it like that on these commercials. So, you know, going and functioning in a professional environment was something that all of us were doing really at an early age. And I'm talking about from my cousins, you know, Kook, to my cousin Jason, you know, all of us were growing up in this kind of pod of music that was constantly in your face, from gospel I remember, my brother probably gonna trip when he hears me say this because he hates when I remember this, but I have a memory as a child of laying on the pew at the church when my mom was having choir rehearsal. Like this. Like I can remember these voices in my head of these 150 pieces. My mom's and dad is directing, and there's people, so music was just imprinted day one. It was we just thought it was a fun thing to do. There was always instruments around over at my grandmother's, Granny Jean's house. You just pick up something and start playing. A trumpet, nobody gave a damn. You just played something. A pot and pan, play that.
Right. That's awesome, man. That's crazy.
Right.
And so let me move on, because I want to ask you this too. You've worked with a lot of execs and artists that ring many, many bells in the music industry. I want to start with the execs that you've worked with, man. Just to name a few. I have a few written down here. And a lot of these are producers and songwriters themselves. But you've worked with Jam and Lewis, Luel Silas Jr., Sylvia Rome, Benny Medina, Quincy Jones, Babyface, L.A. Reid. Now, let me ask you this. Out of all those that I just named, is there one particular person that you've worked with out of this bunch, or not even out in that bunch, that left some type of impression, or you took something with? And I know you took something from all of them, but is there one in particular that you kind of like favor?
Well, Lul's always going to be my guy, but I think Lul is everybody's guy from, our clique. We had a clique of producers during that time, and MCA was the hub. MCA Black Music was the hub, which is what put out New Edition, BBD. Even on the other side of that was Andre Harrell. He was part of that. So Mary, all those artists were collapsing on this little floor over in Lancashire and in North Hollywood, and Lil Silas was the king up there. And we would sit back in Chicago and hear the records that he was putting out and pronounces. We would be pronouncing his name. We'd be looking at the jacket. We'd be like, man, who is this Lyle Silas? Like, like, who is this dude? And so when I first got on, Michelle McKinney sent my demo, just to give her a little love, because none of this would have happened without her. She sent my demo to a publisher unsolicited. And at that time, I had my jingle business, so I was doing really well in the jingle business. And he calls me and goes, "Hey, I want to sign y'all to a publishing deal." And we was like, yeah, whatever. I was doing the jingles. I was making a lot of money, doing well. So he wants to sign us. We signed a deal with Famous Music. Just moving the story. The first thing they wanted to do was to introduce me to Lul. So used to be this conference called the Urban Network. I don't know if it's still going on, the Urban Network Conference. So Alan Molina, who was another one of my mentors, Alan Molina, who was the senior vice president over Famous, took me to this conference, and they were having this party, and this wall of people walk in. And it's a little guy. Lul wasn't a big guy, and Lul walks in the room, and Alan's like, "Lul," like everybody's like, "Lul, Lul." The whole place is going, "Lul, Lul." Lul walks dead into me, and Alan goes, "Lul, this is Laney Stewart. I want you to meet him. You're going to be working together soon." And Lul was like, "Yeah." And moved me out the way.
Are you serious?
Dead ass. he was that big. Like, he was doing it like that. So fast forward. My first kind of call came from Benny Medina. And he called me. I was literally in LA at the time doing a commercial. And Benny called and said he wanted to have a meeting with me. Me and my partner at that time, Tony Haynes, had written this one song, the first song we ever wrote together, and who I had a lot of success with. He heard the song, and I missed the meeting because my session ran over. So I was like, "Yo, well, that's that." And so he called back. He said, "No, Benny really wants to meet with you." So I go over and I sit down with Benny, and that's when he tells me he wants me to go and to Flight Time and work with Jimmy and Terry. And I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, I'm trying to be cool, but my face went numb. I ain't even gonna lie, my shit was numb. I was like, So me and my partner, I was like, well, I'm thinking maybe he's gonna say next year or some shit. And so he was like, "Yeah, can you be up there next week?" And I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like, so go up to Flight Time to work on the Karen White project. It's maybe my second or third project. And it's nobody there. It's just me, Jimmy, and Terry. And at that time, and Sue. That was his person at the front. And Lul, they're working on Ralph Travesman. Okay. And Lul comes up, and he remembered me from that meeting, and he saw me. He's like, "What you doing up here?" And I was like, "I'm working with Jimmy and Terry." And from that point on, I was his man. Like, he never he was calling me every day from that point on. And he really was the first dude to teach me how to make a record. So I was having kind of this dual experience of sitting there every day for a couple of years, like a year and a half with Jimmy and Terry working at Flight Time, and then doing records for Lul. And two of the best record people I ever, we all are some sort of extension from that tree, the two of them. So I equally put them together.
Let me ask you this real quick, man, because I got to get this question in too. Because a lot of people don't get the opportunity to work with such big names as Jam and Lewis, Lil Silas, and people like that. But I want to talk about Jam and Lewis real quick, man, because they're two of my favorite. Okay.
Yes, period. Mine too.
But what type of method do they use when they're in the studio? Like, what is their thing, man? Because it's like they just can't give you a bad record.
Well, I mean, look, this is it. I'm gonna say what it is. It's not by accident. This is what they taught me, and this is why we've had the run that we've had. Everything that they taught me is this 30-year run that we've had in the music business. First of all, creatively, and then second of all, from a business perspective, started with kind of them kind of going, Terry taking me up under his wing and going, I remember the first time he said, this ain't no accident, right? And I went, what? What are you talking about? Getting these hits. So at that point, he started to show me how to get to the hits. It's a science to it. And so he's breaking it down, and at the same time, we're working. And he's going, see, right here, you want to pop, and then da-da-da. And I'll be like, oh, got it. Then I go over to the room, listen to what Jimmy was doing. Jimmy working on the track, and it's crazy, but it's a scratch track. It ain't the track. So then you start learning these philosophies of writing, production. And the moment I got the shit, I'm running straight back down because, at that time, my guys were still in Chicago. We were working, so Mark and Tricky and everybody is down in Chicago. Coop. I'm running down and going, we need to start doing this, and this. Yeah. Like, don't break these rules. This is why you can keep doing it over and over and over again. So we through that process, that's what's been the key. That I know that every hit songwriter, every hit producer, you have to be something that you have to be given and kind of ushered into understanding that you could get to one, but when they start calling you for that hit, the worst thing that could ever happen is you don't know how you got there.
Right.
Because they want.
And I'll say this too. 20 years ago when you and I met, and you signed me, because for everybody that doesn't know, I was signed to this man. This man I'm talking to right now signed me to his label.
And you a bad boy.
You
a bad boy.
I didn't start the show off by saying this, but I want to say I really appreciate you for that, man, because you reached out to me and you took me in at a time where nobody really messing with me. I was new to Atlanta. I just moved from Detroit to Atlanta, and I didn't have nothing going on. I was just kind of just here, And
dude, I didn't know where you. I don't know how did I meet you? Was it Jason?
Through Jarvis. Through
Jarvis. Got you. Jarvis Taylor. That's right. Yeah, extra
Jarvis.
medium.
Hey, lady, listen. I was over at Noontime Studios with Jason, my cousin Jason, and we were doing a session, and we were like working on some tracks. And Jarvis came over there, and he was like, "Hey man, who are you signed to?" I'm like, "Nobody." He was like, "Come meet my fellas." I hopped in his little small car, and he brought me over to Red Zone.
Yo, dude, hilarious. I thought it was Jason, but it was Jarvis. You're right.
It was Jarvis, yeah. But I really appreciate that, man. I really appreciate it, because and some of the things you were just talking about that you learned from Jam and Lewis, those are some of the things that you actually taught me, and I have to say that they do work.
They work.
So,
I mean,
yes,
look,
yes,
they work. They work.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. There is a sector of people who I can have that conversation with, and they will walk out the room and not listen to not one thing that you have to say.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
They'll, I'll be like, sometimes I'm like, I'm spitting y'all, because sometimes I just, particularly just getting back from Atlanta and my guys in Atlanta, when we would be sitting in the front and just having conversation. You know how it is at the studio.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be working, but everybody's sitting up in the front.
Everybody kicking it. Yeah.
And what, for me, the game has enough potholes in it that what I can tell you, all it does is it's increase your chances. It doesn't mean I'm giving you I'm never giving the secret sauce meetings out. I'm never saying those things. But what I am saying is, here, be careful here, so that your journey into the game is still going to be one that's destined for you. But when you drop $1 million information and you can tell who's listening, you can look around the room and go, who's paying attention? And you go, there it is.
Yeah.
And then you know the one who's paying attention, a la Dream, because Dream was paying on Dream, Tricky. They all pay attention. Sean, my cousin Sean, everybody who's ever I've had an influence on has had a hit. They were listening. That's all I can tell you. They might have done a million other things wrong, but the one thing you got right, it's just the first thing that I say in the chapter of if there was a book, is to learn to shut the fuck up and listen to somebody in the room that's talking.
There it is. You preach. You preaching right now.
But most cats be trying to overtalk y'all, man, and you be like, okay, well, you go ahead and talk.
Yeah. I just saw Tricky say, how can I find Jarvis? We all want to know, Tricky. Hey,
when we get off the air, I'll
Jarvis
tell
might
you
be
where to
somewhere in
find
Alabama on a gambling boat. We don't know.
Jail, but we'll talk about that off the thing.
Yeah. So moving forward, let me ask you this, man, because what you did was you made a transition from, and you just touched on this a few minutes ago, but you made a transition from LA to Atlanta to help your brother set up what he had going on. How was that trend? Because LA is another monster.
Yes.
There's a vast difference between what goes on musically in LA and what goes on musically in Atlanta. And how was that transition for you, man? Because I know working out in LA, you probably got used to that style of that method of how they work out there. How was the transition for you, man, coming down here? Or was there one?
No, it was because, when I came to LA, when we left to go, moved out here, we all came out in 92. And my goal was to see just how I went against the best of the best in the world. That literally was what I wanted to see. It was a talent thing. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about getting rich. It wasn't about fame. I just wanted to know, how do I stand up next to these motherfuckers out here that's killing it, that I'm watching? So I basically at that point, when I went to, I had adjusted to LA life, and doing it, Atlanta was a shock for me. The guys when Trick had gone down to Atlanta, I think in 94, and the studio had just started. He put up, it's like, I always tell people when I left is, the studio is like this beautiful place now, but back then, I'm sure he's laughing right now if you hear this shit. It was a ramp, a couple bathrooms, and what we know to be his room, that was the first room that was done. And so Trick and Sean went down there and built that first part of the studio. So by the time I moved down there, Shakespeare had been there. Shake was in the building. Focus, and my brother had called me. I was working with Babyface at that point, and my brother called me and he was like, "Yo, man, you need to come down here. We need to just bring you in. We're gonna bring Focus. Jason got Focus down here in the back. Shakespeare over here. Shake, I think, had just wrote No Scrubs. I think at that time it was in '99. So I go down there, and this is in Atlanta. Was just at the beginning of being like what Atlanta. Like when JD, everybody was really Dallas. Freaknik was still popping. It's like
still popping.
It was like Atlanta was a thing of like a destination now, and it was going on down there. But their methods were so much different than the ones that I was used to, in the game. So now there's an organicness. Like you play a record, you go to the strip club and play it to see if it's hot. I'm like, oh shit, that's tight. Like there's a culture around the game. There's no culture around the music industry. It's business culture, but in Atlanta,
Right.
there's a creative culture, and
And you know
it's
what? Let me
something
say,
you can tap
I'm sorry.
into.
You know, I hate to interrupt you, but I gotta say this too because I
Yeah,
gotta give you flowers while you can still smell them. Listen, there, and I stick with this. I say this all the time. You guys, when I say you guys, I mean you and your brothers. You guys brought something to it to Atlanta music that and I'm not taking anything away from Atlanta producers or writers, but I'm saying when you guys when I got there in 2000, I noticed that your sound was something that Atlanta was missing.
yeah,
You know, I just feel like you guys brought something extra to the table that Atlanta was missing at that time, and it just made a
yeah.
world of a difference. You know what I'm saying? And that's not
Well,
just because I know you and I revere you as a producer. I'm just saying I'm speaking the truth. You know what I'm saying?
well, it was interesting because part of the thought process, and Chris Hicks and them will probably laugh, but I remember when me and Mark had the conversation, we were going after noontime, which was our kind of competition,
Yeah, yeah,
and we kind of came together with this mindset of like, yo, the noontime niggas is hot, like we need
yeah.
to beat them, come down
Right.
here. Mark orchestrated it, like get down here. And what happened once I got in the building, something just it was like, man, this electricity that just took off during that time where, like, if you got in our building and you were supposed to go someplace else, you didn't really go no place else.
You didn't go no place.
Like,
I know. I'm a
you was
witness.
getting, you gonna get eight. You gonna get eight out of here right now. Niggas would be outside. This before we had the gates up, like pulling up on the block trying to find the artists because they wasn't coming out the building.
Right.
Management locked in. Don't let them out. You come
Y'all
here,
was holding hostage.
we hold them hostage. Focus be down there. Focus got some crazy, shake their trick. Niggas will leave their door. Remember, niggas leave their door open. So you could just hear what the fuck, you'd be like, and niggas be like, oh, no. Our competition amongst each other had gotten so, when we didn't even care what was going on in the rest of the city. We were just like killing them, like, yo, what's up? And we didn't know until it kind of, cooled down what had been done. But, we were 5 records here, 5 records, 6 records. We were supposed to come in and get 1 record from Shape. And they end up getting 2 from me and Trick. Mark would leverage it, leverage the whole building.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you
It
need
was
to go
crazy,
over here.
man.
Yeah, you was there.
I like by the time I got there, I got there in 2000. Yeah, by the time I got there, man, it was like the experience at Red Zone was one that I've never experienced before, and I've been in a lot of situations. I was signed to LL Cool J for a minute and all that, but I'm saying when I got with you guys and when I started producing and you signed me to your production company, it was like it was night and day from what I experienced before. And because I'm gonna tell you why I'm saying this, because we actually had fun while we worked.
Yeah,
You know
we
what
had
I'm
a lot
saying?
of fun. Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
like a stuffy atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? It
No,
wasn't like,
no.
it wasn't a bunch of suit and ties running around. It was like, we was kicking back, we was chilling, laughing, cracking jokes. We was working now. Don't get it
Yeah.
twisted, but it was a very fun atmosphere, man. So I just remember, how you guys, you changed my way of thinking when it came to production, man. You taught me a whole lot. A whole lot.
Well, we're kind of doing a draw back to the beginning of the conversation. I believe that one of the secrets for us is that the invisible secrets is whether it's been from it as a family has been a level of excellence that we just set a bar that's probably higher than the average person wants to deal with.
Yeah.
The bar in that building at that time was so high. I mean, you got to understand, at that point, no scrubs have been written in that building.
Yeah.
Bills have been written in that building. And in that building was the expectation of those things. You were trying to beat what that was.
Yes.
You were trying to come up with things that would, Trick would go in there and do Case of the X. You kind of, I go in there and do Without You, something that was happening, Focus would come with a track. Focus would come in and have like battles, like, but and you'd be like, oh, that's crazy. And then you play, we were just competing healthily against each other, just playing each other's music,
Friendly competition.
But Atlanta, we'll say this, going back to your point, is I think Atlanta had a lot more effect on us than maybe what we were doing. We were different to come to when Trick got there. He was bringing that, you know, kind of Lil Silas, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Minneapolis, you know, production style with him that I had taught him. And so he got down there and got into the filth of what, you know, the dirty birdness of what Atlanta was bringing, you know, strip club, you know, bringing that atmosphere into the studio was what we wanted to do. We wanted to be connected to the people. So there was always a lot of people, as you know, around, but you would know immediately if a record wasn't working or was working. It's a reaction. It's an involuntary reaction. And the moment that if I'm looking in the room and ain't nobody giving me an involuntary, I don't want to be looking all in your face like that. No, I want you to give it up. I want you to give it up. If you ain't giving it up, that ain't it.
Right.
That ain't it. That's not the record.
That's fact. That's fact.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of that,
yes.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, because you know, you don't normally get a lot of producers out here who have family that do what they do. You and your brother, Tricky, man. How is it working with your family, with your brother? Because it's one thing to work with Jam and Lewis and everybody else, but is there a difference?
It's a minefield. I mean, you know, it's hard enough to be family anyway, but it's, you know, we are all, you know, there's so many talented, it's people in my family that's so talented. My Uncle Butch, rest his soul, God rest his soul. He was another huge influence on me. Super talented, just oozing out of his ears. I got a cousin named Lil Man who plays the stew out of a piano. Like we just, it's in our genes. And so I feel like I had to realize there was a level of competition that I didn't realize was actually happening. But there's a level of competition with it. And then when you're in business and your brothers and and we all kind of alphas, it creates we have to make, what's that, quarantine distance. You know, we got to give each other 6 feet sometimes. Because, you know, like me and Tricky and Mark play the game like athletes. We have an athletic mindset towards the music business. And it goes back to our sports thing as kids. So a lot of what we do is but that intensity, we pull models from other people, but that athletic intensity is what we bring to the competition. And that can mean your opinion might be a little stronger than that nigga's opinion. And you know, so it can become that. And so I think as we got older, we had to learn to give each other, all of us, everybody now has their little space that they have created, so where when the family thing comes together, it's easy. You know, it's no drama. There's just, you know, but working together is hard as hell. It's hard as hell. I'm sure they would have put it a little bit more gently, but it's hard. It's my mom was even working in the studio, and that was tough. You know, it's like, it's, you know, it's just, you know what it was. You be down there. So, you know, but at the same time, I think that intensity produced where we have become. Like, I think that pushing each other to a level of greatness, I think that's what has really kind of been why we've been here for 30-something years.
Absolutely, man. That sounds wonderful. I like that. Okay, let me move forward with this. So, because you know, a lot of times, I get a lot of people that log on here. They're songwriters and they're producers for they're you know, doing their thing, and they're trying to, you know, get their name known out here as a producer or a songwriter. Share with them, in your opinion, and I ask a lot of my guests this, but I'm asking you this right now. In your opinion, what makes a hot track?
That's a really good question. I think what makes a hot track in this day and age, everything is the beat. But we're kind of in a market where that beat is kind of singular, kind of you know, there's some components to it that you're just going to always have, 808, you know, and then there's variances to that beat. And that's always been part of the music business. The beat is everything. But I just think that when you hear a track, it's got to convey, because you're talking to the top line writers at that point. You're trying to convey what you're trying to get across in that track. So when I hear a track, I'm listening for a discussion of what that producer's saying to me, because that's going to make it easy for the writer to walk in and go, oh, I hear this. I hear something.
Right.
If a writer doesn't come in and hear it, they could force something on top of the record. But if a writer doesn't hear anything off the cuff, it's because you didn't say nothing.
Right.
You got to be deliberate in your track to say, you see what I'm trying to do. So like I might do a record and be pulling a little bit from some other record and I want to see if that writer gets where I'm at. I'm doing a version of that, and are you like, and if they don't get it, I'm speaking to somebody who's going to eventually get that point, and then they're going to go, oh, I see what you did there. I'm going back to that and give you this, that.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it's a discussion right away. Like, I mean, there was no way the first time I heard Case of the X, when Trick did that. Like, you're not gonna miss if you miss that. That's easy.
Yeah.
That's his job.
Yeah.
His job was to make that shit easy. That's what our job is. We're gonna make. So when you hear that,
who wrote Case of the X, Laney?
Trick, Tracy, Tab, Tracy Hale, Tab. I think that was it. I don't want to leave. That was the trio. That was the three of them. They did a lot of that during that time before Dream. Yeah. So it was. It might have been some other. It's like, but you trying to just have a conversation right off the cuff, and it don't need to be produced all the way. I think one of the biggest misnomers is cats is, they don't leave a lot of room for the vocalist, for the melody.
And that's what I was going to say. That's another thing I was going to piggyback on when you said that, was also that being a producer is kind of like being a surgeon, because if you're operating on something, and the operation has to go right, and a lot of times if you put too much into it, then you can kill the song, kill the vibe of the song.
Well, I look at it like I actually use a chef analogy better, is when you're cooking and you're going through the process of cooking. The end game is when it comes out the oven. Everybody's waiting for it to come out the oven moment, right?
Yeah.
But everybody's not waiting. When it's flour and it's eggs and it's water and it's milk, you got to see something in that. The person that's making that knows that this is going to be a cake when they start that.
Right.
The question is what everybody, when it comes out the oven, is going to think about it, and that's what you're thinking about right away in the room. Right. You're thinking about that right away in the room.
Absolutely.
You're just trying to get to the point to where you go, I could take this and make bread at this point. I could take this and make a cake with it at this point. Everything is about the process of the writing process. Even I tell people all the time, I tell young writers all the time, stop producing and writing at the same time. Write the record and then produce it, because you could be producing the fuck out of a terrible song, and that's what you get most of the time. And particularly with the equipment and gear, there's so much equipment and gear that everybody's shit sound good now.
Yeah, that's true.
Bad singers sound good. Bad producers can produce the fuck out of a bad song. It's like so. And you gotta and when people, I hate this because they think it's that. They think they can fool hit A&R. You can't fool A&R and producers who are in the game at a certain level with production, because we all know where we're listening for the song, and then we're taking apart after that. But you're listening for the song first. You're really trying to get to the meat of the record, and then you go, because that's what people fall in love with. You're dressing around it. How you got the table set is the production. But the food, when it actually hits the table, if people don't like the way it tastes, they just don't like the way it tastes.
They like the way it tastes. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would you say the same thing? Now, okay, so that's as far as music. Okay, that now what about the actual songwriting process? When the writers come in, let's say you got the track and the track is banging and it's hot and everything's good. Speak to the songwriters at this point. When it comes to songwriting, what is that thing that makes a good songwriter?
Ooh, there's different points of entry, but here's one, and I'll draw two writers that are close to home in this circumstance, and that would be Dream. I would use Dream. This is the reason why I signed Dream. There's a sensibility that it's the same with a great rapper. There's a sensibility of how they tell their story.
Okay.
They're telling a story, and they're very cool with telling that story in the detail, almost like Dream didn't. When I met Dream, he actually, the first audition, it didn't work out. I didn't know he had been in the building prior to that. And my boy Vaughn brought him in to see me, and Vaughn, he hyped him up. You know Vaughn, right? And,
I think so. Yeah.
His Grammy, Laney is Grammy, and then so Vaughn comes in with Laney, I got this writer that's bananas. So I was like, well, bring him over, Vaughn. Let me holler at him. So Dream comes over. Dream didn't sing didn't have a good audition. I ain't gonna say what happened, but it wasn't a good audition.
Okay.
So, but I did tell him this, and this is what I told him. I said, dude, I said, go back, and I try to leave writers when they have a bet, when it ain't worked out, with, way to go back, go back and come back. I don't be meaning it, but I mean, like a lot of times I'll be just trying to send them out with, I think you got, if you got something, we'll talk about that. But from the perspective of, like, I was like, yeah, come back. And I didn't think he was going to come back. And then a year later, he came back. So I said, oh, you back. So I bought him back again. I said, the first thing I said, you back. All right. He didn't know it. I was like, I'm going to fuck with you from this point on anyway, because you had the balls to actually come back to this piece.
Come back, yeah.
So on the comeback, he was in. Like, I was going to fuck with him.
Right.
Because most cats wouldn't have been like, fuck that nigga. He don't know nothing.
Yeah.
So he came back, and I had respect for that. So he auditioned. The first thing I realized when he was auditioning, in the first record we wrote together, was this record that nobody knows they ever heard, was called I'm in Love with My Sister's Girlfriend. And we were working on B2K at the time. And B2K had parked their tour buses. They was on tour. They had parked their buses down the street. They were like, we had, I think, 4 days to do as many songs. Like, we did 8 songs in 4 days. Wow. Dream walks in literally that day, comes in, he writes this song, but I'm listening to his lyrics, and I'm like, there's so much detail that he's getting in that's real circumstances. Yeah. Like, this is not no fluff shit. This is a rapper's point of view of a record. And then his scans was reminding me, at that time, after I just came off of Casey and JoJo, like a few album cycles ago, and Bone Thugs and Harmony was in the room when we was working. And I was a big fan of theirs. And so when we were working and they started doing, they was in the room doing their thing, like, hey, and I always loved that sequence. And Dream walked in and he was dropping it like that. And I was like, yo. So all of these things start clicking, like bang, 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 bang. But there were still things that he didn't know about the songwriting process, the hooks aspect, but it was his point of view. Candy had the same thing when they walked in, but they had got that from Jermaine and working over there when they came in and wrote Scrubs. It was like they were having a conversation. So when a top line writer walks in the room, I'm listening for what their melody mindset is, and I'm listening to how their lyrical point of view is on what they're trying to say. Yeah. Period. Yeah. And so I'm like, and even if you're raw and it sounds janky, I'll hear through that and see something, and that's when I go, I'll fuck with you. And that's where a lot of people miss those writers, because they're listening for a moment. They're listening for a moment of perfection, and I'm not. I'm listening for where your seeds are, like where your little moments are of, oh yeah, but if we exploit that, then, and that's why I'm a big believer in putting writers. Some writers have better strengths in other areas and putting them together. So if you're a lyrical person and not a great melody person, it's about putting those two people together. Right. And then seeing if there's some magic there, because that person's lyrical point of view and your lyrics suck, but your melodies is dope, and they come together. And if y'all can get egos out the way to let each other become one, it's magical. I did that with my ex when she did on Love Me, I Love Me Some Him, and her and Andrea Martin came in on that record. But it was like trying to get her to, you're a lyrical person, you're not a melody person. And then boom. And so that's what happens. So you kind of got to be in the metrics of it. You got to be in the really looking for something. And generally, there's people who I have those meetings with, and I'll walk away from those meetings thinking, put a note in my head is, if they come back, I'm going to mess with them. I want to see how they're going to respond to the notes. Yeah, I want to see how they respond to what I told them.
Absolutely. That's good advice right there, man. That was good. Now, what in your opinion makes a great artist, man? Because you work with a lot of them. I got a little list right here. You work with Madonna, Chris Brown, Charlie Wilson, Shantae Moore, Tony, Casey, JoJo, B2K, Soleil, Blue Cantrell, TLC, Destiny's Child, Britney Spears, Tony Braxton, Usher, Tyrese, Keith Washington, Aaron Hall, Karen White, just to name a few.
Right. Damn. That's a lot, yeah.
And what in your opinion, what makes a good artist, man?
It's something that they just walk in the room with. I think it's a variable, because people think it's about the singing and it's about the presence.
Mm-hmm.
An artist can walk in a room and you feel their presence. And I'll speak on an artist that's right now that's like literally up on my plate. And I'm not self-promoting because we doing a record together, but Michaela, MKXY.
Yeah. She's hot. She's hot. Yeah.
Dude, like I watched her, both her and I got down to Atlanta about the same time 2 years ago when I just got back from Atlanta. But I was there for 2 years. And Tricky had called her and brought her in. I was taking a look at her at that time when I got down there. And the funny part about it is the song that's out, now that I speak on it, I wrote when I got there. It was the first record that I wrote when I got to Atlanta, Lost, the record that's out right now. And so not thinking it's going to be for her, it wasn't anything like that. But the synergy of it as I'm thinking about it was crazy. But I watched her come in and develop. Some artists come in and they got that explosive, Blue was, Blue came in the room, Blue, it was, but I watched this girl develop. Like MK was like, you would see her get better, just not in the studio at becoming an artist, that intangible that we all, as producers, when we sign an artist, that one intangible thing that you go, man, I hope they don't, I see it, but I hope that this at some point doesn't crumble. And in the back of our minds, we know where those areas are, but you're trying to maybe sneak them through let me just get this deal done and then we'll work on it, But with MK, it's been watching this maturation of her just flourish. Like, I cannot wait for people to meet her as an artist, because I remember before I left, like before the virus went down, and she and I were sitting on the couch and I'm like, you ready? And she was like, you think so? And I was like, you ready? Like, it's just time to go. It's like, it's time. She had this meeting up at Epic, really big, but it was before she had the meeting up at Epic, actually. And I told her, I was like, you ready? You just poised her confidence, but it wasn't loud. And so it's one of those things that you just can't go, man, that person walks in with it. And then when you be around Beyonce or you be around any artist that's huge, that intangible, they all have the same thing. And so that's why when people come in and they go, man, I can sing. And you go, you don't have that. You didn't make me feel nothing. Right. And I've missed some artists. Like, I miss Carrie. I missed on Carrie Hilson. I missed on her. I mean, I wanted to do it. We didn't get it done. And then, and I missed on Sierra. But Sierra would be around every day. Like Sierra was the homegirl. Like, and people was like, you need to do something. And me and Sierra were more writing together at that time. Okay. We were just writing like all the time. When she was 16. So, but when Sierra turned into an artist, and I was like, nah, I'm good. And then the next thing you know, she turned into Sierra. So you can miss that too. But it's just a thing that you feel.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, that's what's up. And as far as producers who are trying to get placements, because a lot of times it's sometimes it's not as easy as they may think it is. A lot of cats think I'm gonna go in here and bang this beat out, and because they got a couple of their homeboys around them that say it's hot, they feel like, oh yeah, Cardi B will take this or so and so, but it's not as easy as you think it is. What if any, if there is one, what is the formula for getting your music placed in the music industry?
Write a hit song.
There it is.
I mean, I was trying to think something like, look, there is a little bit of a science to shopping music, but that's more about relationship building and contacts. I believe that the one thing that we did that was really major was we like the A&R to have an experience with us. So, it's once we got them in, there's people we worked on, A&R people we worked on, and labels that we worked on for 4 or 5 years to try to get. Okay. They wasn't you could have hits everywhere. They wasn't trying to fuck with you. And we would just dig. Jive was Jive. We spent 4 years digging into Jive until we had a couple records. I did a record that was really close to being on Britney's album before the one that Trick did, like in the last days of Britney. But it was like, they was like, nah. And so when we finally got them to come down to Atlanta, we wanted them to have an experience. And then from that point on, we built a relationship with Jive. It's really about the relationship, not just with the A&R, but it's about when people know the relationship between A&R and producers is trust. Yeah. Can I trust that you're going to bring the record home? If you can't bring the record home, then they're gonna come, and we do a lot of a la carte now. You know, there's not a lot of producers who are like, you know, us in the sense of speaking of me and Trick, you know, kind of top to bottom. We produce the vocals, range it, you know, all that.
Yeah.
There is a lot, you know, now, you know, this goes out to here to do the vocals. You know, Coop, my cousin Coop, probably will do the vocals 9 times out of 10. That's going to go, then it's going to go to this engineer and he's going to do this, and the engineers and those guys. And a lot of times, like, you know, even for me, when I did the Chris Brown record, you know, I was talking to the engineer most of the time because Chris just cut his vocal by himself. So, you know, Pat and I were talking, and, you know, and I'd be like, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. But normally that position would have been me sitting in the studio and going, do this, and do this. So we're in a different game now from that perspective. But building that relationship so that they can trust you is why they keep coming back. Because then ultimately, if you're getting the result, and this is what goes back to just write a hit, and everybody that I'll be sitting back on Instagram sometimes and seeing people in their lives and stuff going, we got one. And I'll be like, no, you don't. and it's not because the record ain't hot. It's just so much. It's so much that has to happen to get it to the point to where it's that record. You have to, like, if Shakespeare had wrote No Scrubs and out in Kankakee where he was, nobody would have ever heard that record. He wrote it in our building. You know, so the access was there. So when Mark and Tricky heard that record and then played that record, they were able to go, oh yeah, let's play this for Dr. Let's send this to LA. So
and I see over here Tricky said, and trust the vibe.
And trust the vibe.
Trust the vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
So every step along the way, it's nobody can make a mistake. You can't make a mistake. The song, you know, when you hear a song that's doing well, it's a lot of things that had to go right. There's a lot of songs that you and I did, you know, that just nobody ever heard, that is dope as hell because a couple things went wrong in that process along the way. You have to really be in a place to where you start to build relationships at a level of trust between the business partners who you're working with, whether, you know, in the A&R game, management. You know, managers are the ones that really to get to and sit down and have a conversation with them. But they know who look, their job is to get the record. They don't have time for hope and belief. And maybe one day you got to, as Janet said one time, ain't nobody going to give it to you. You got to take it.
Got to take it. That's real. That's real talk.
You got to take it. Like, you know, what's happened for us in our career has been a lot about just taking the moment and pouncing on it with no thought of, when we left Chicago, we were like, we ain't coming back.
Right. Gotcha.
People was like, are you guys okay? You guys okay out there? We was like, yeah, we ain't on Mars. Like, but we ain't coming back. Like, we're not coming back. So every record, regardless of how big it was or how small it was, we dealt with it like it was you know, we played and pretended like it was Madonna or it was Whitney or it was, you know, B or it was, you know, Reed or something like that. Like, we worked ourselves into a point to where that artist then starts to ring your phone. Because everybody got treated like that. Everybody got that.
Okay. I got about 5 more minutes. I'm gonna ask you 2 or 3 more questions. It's counting me down. Listen, real quick, give me 2 minutes of your thoughts on what's going on in the world today, man. You know, we're seeing a lot of lynching of a lot of our young black men and women. What's your thoughts on what you see in the news right now, man, with the protesting and everything?
It's necessary. I'm with it. But now, after when it's all said and done, there's a mindset of philosophy amongst us as a people that we got to start to create a mantra amongst ourselves and take responsibility for us. And I say that not in a negative way, but I say that in a positive way, in the sense that ain't nobody going to get us out this situation but us. And in that scenario, meaning circling, as we like to use this phrase, circling the wagons. My dad used to use it a lot. Circling the wagons around our community and getting back to being authentically black and being authentically about the products and things that we want. Now, there's a concept and a philosophy that works in that, and that is learning how to stand on each other's shoulders. We have got to get to the point to where we understand how to stand on each other's shoulders, and when somebody lifts you up, lift that person and keep lifting people up. We're not good at that. As people. We got to get better at taking this and taking our situations to helping each other and making our business models and making our business, how can we work together and being enthusiastic, not walking away, nah, man, fuck that nigga. Nah,
Yeah.
no, don't.
Right.
We do that too much. That's too much.
Yes.
Too much of
Right.
that. We got to
Right.
be, yo, I might not be able to do shit with you for 2 years, but I met you, we connected, and someday down the line, we going to do something together. May not be right now. We're not aligned right now. And create this mantra amongst ourselves is get money. It's
That's
money
it.
calling.
That's it.
It's getting money. And not begrudge the other guy what he doing, because that's the way I got in. I got in the game because other people saw stuff in me at every step of the way. Somebody saw something in me. The conversations that I had with Terry about being a Black business owner, he never had to have those conversations with me. He called me out to his house one day just to talk about how I was going to be as a Black producer in the game. And how was my family, how you going to deal with your family with money, and how you going to deal with this, and how you going to deal with that. And then he taught me, we would just sit there for hours, go out on this boat, chilling, and he just dropping these things about being Black and being an owner and this is in 92. We're having these conversations. We've been dealing with this stuff forever, but this is something that we got to pull together and make sure that, and then we go outwards and make money.
Yeah.
You know, I'm working on it. I'm not going to shamelessly plug, but I'm shamelessly plug. I'm working.
That's my next question for you. I was going to ask you what you're doing. I was going to ask you what you're doing. Go ahead.
I'm working on a documentary about the '90s, about the power of Black entertainment and how we was running shit, and everybody tried to pretend like we wasn't. Every big Black artist at that time was running the whole game. Prince was the biggest rock star. Michael Jackson was the biggest artist. Whitney Houston, Eddie Murphy was the biggest box office. We were the biggest. Arsenio. All of these things was on there popping, but they made our market a secondary market. And we was only making music for us. We weren't making music for other people. We were making music for Black. So the documentary is called Unapologetically Black, and we're gonna go into how Black culture shaped America. And it's gonna be good. It's gonna be Black entertainment culture.
When is that dropping? Do you have a release date for it?
I think we're looking at 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, 2022. It's we're going back, and it's big because I'm trying to get, Quincy's getting up there. Quincy Jones in the 90s, huge part. You think about this man, this guy had a magazine, a TV shows, he producing movies. Quincy, people think about Quincy from a music perspective, but Quincy is a guy that had his hands in everything in Black music and did very well without having to look out. I mean, look, he was, obviously had the biggest guy of all time in Michael Jackson, but the fact of the matter is that Quincy was making product for us.
Yes, he was. And
absolutely. So our content can't be about getting validated by outside of us first, but by getting our Black radio stations, making our Black content. I know that Black radio ain't never coming back, but our Black content that's being made online, making sure that it's for us, that we, for us, by us.
Got you.
And that's what's next.
Seconds left. I got 60 seconds left. I want to take this 60 seconds to tell you a few things. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming on the show, man, and being a part of this show. Man, I really appreciate you. I really do.
Oh, man, don't worry about it.
And also, I want to say thanks for everything, man. From day one, Laney, you've been solid with me. And I like giving flowers. I have to give you your flowers.
Well, you owe me bouquet because you met your wife through me. So you owe me a shot.
Listen, you're responsible for me and my wife being married to this day. I really appreciate that. I got 30 seconds. Listen, man, I love you, man, and I
love you too, bro.
All right,
no worries,
we gotta
man.
do it again.
Definitely, let's do it again. Hey, I've got my LSU talk. You gonna come on there? I'm gonna get you on there, ask you some questions. But we get ready to start next week. I'm gonna try to get Dream and some other people to